Tomorrow is a very historic day for those of us involved in road safety and vehicle safety, because the United Nations General Assembly is adopting a very comprehensive resolution on road safety, which is based on a declaration adopted by governments at a conference in Brasilia last November. And it's an unprecedentedly strong commitment that is being made by the member states of the UN. The US government incidentally was involved in the drafting of the declaration of the Brasilia meeting, which is where this text originates. And it commits the international community to try and achieve a reduction by half of road deaths by 2020, very ambitious target. But also, very significantly, it contains the strongest wording that I've ever seen. I've been 20 years involved in vehicle safety, not quite as long as Ralph Nader, but I've never seen the UN be so specific about the vehicle standards that they want to see, clearly by the culmination of this decade of action. And it calls on member states to implement United Nations vehicle safety regulations or equivalent national standards to ensure that all new motor vehicles meet applicable minimum regulations for occupant, other road safety users protection, with seat belts, airbags, and active safety systems fitted as standard. This is a very, very strong, clear resolution that we expect to be adopted tomorrow by the UN General Assembly. Now, the reason, prompted by this, in fact, tomorrow Global NCAP will be writing to all the CEOs of all the major car companies, drawing their attention to this very important resolution and encouraging them not to wait for regulation, but to act sooner than that and to apply voluntary measures to try and achieve the goals of this resolution. And we're writing to all car manufacturers because across the spread of the global industry, you have some very good performers and you have some not so good performers. And certainly here in Washington, as you can gather, there's a certain focus on GM. We are quite happy to share our criticism and our praise. And there are other companies that are also producing very poor results, like the Chevrolet Sail. Thinking of Mexico, until recently, the best-selling car in Mexico was the Nissan Tsuru, which is a particularly bad car, still being sold. So I want to make it clear that we're not uniquely criticizing GM. But today we are also writing separately to Mary Barra, because we were very struck by her commitment made, particularly after 2014 with the ignition crisis. She made took some very dramatic actions to change the safety culture inside GM. Indeed, she fired the entire safety team and reappointed new people. But also she launched something called the Speak Up for Safety program. And I can just applaud this. It seems a very impressive and important initiative. And she said that the Speak Up for Safety program is an important step toward embedding the customer and safety-centered culture in every aspect of our business. Now that's admirable, but it seems to have fallen on deaf ears as far as GM is concerned in Latin America. And so I do think that if companies make statements like this, if they take this strong commitment in words, they must follow up with action. And every aspect of their business for a global company strikes me that must mean everywhere that the company is doing business. And you can't have a kind of half-hearted approach to statements like that. In January, Mary Barra went to Davos, as business leaders often do, and she appeared on a platform there and was asked about global standards and safety. And actually, very encouragingly, said some good things about the benefits of applying global standards. And then she actually said there were huge benefits from globalizing safety standards. And she said, after all, a person is a person. It allows the cost of implementing that technology to come down, allowing it to be made available to more people across the globe. Well, I can only applaud those sentiments. The problem was that she was then asked by a journalist, I have to say, not encouraged by us, entirely spontaneously, about Latin America. And then the language rather changed. And basically she said, well, we've got to respect governments. Who's to say which government is right when it comes to the commonization of safety standards? Well, I'm sorry, but that is not very helpful. And I think the problem we see is, and this isn't just GM, but the industry can sometimes hide behind their industry associations and the lobbying that goes on, as we've seen absolutely crystal clear in Mexico as an example, and there are other countries where this happens, where the industry association is not speaking up for safety at all. And of course, when you look at the construction of AMIA, who is involved in AMIA? Well, the vice president on the board of AMIA is Ernesto Hernandez Quiros, president of GM in Mexico. Well, I don't think he's speaking up for safety. And I think that we really have to respect the call that El Podo has made about the need for GM and other companies to understand the significance of this UN resolution and really take action voluntarily. They don't need to wait for regulation. The good news is that governments in emerging markets are regulating. Brazil has introduced these crash test standards in the last few years. India is applying new crash test standards from October 2017. The tide is turning in favor of proper, appropriate minimum regulations, hence the UN resolution. But we really need to see the industry step up to the clear signal being offered by governments and the United Nations. And so we are today writing to Mary Barra, asking her to do exactly that. And I think there are some quick actions that could be taken that would demonstrate the good faith of the company to live up to their words. And definitely it's within their power to improve the safety specification of the Aveo more or less tomorrow. As Stefan was saying from El Podo, the vast bulk of cars being produced in Mexico are for export and meet all these standards. It's not like they can't do it. They know exactly how to do it. And I really do think that GM should write to the Mexican government and say we support earlier implementation, much earlier implementation of these basic crash test standards. So that's what we hope Mary Barra and her colleagues will do. Thank you very much.